Hey everybody, Kris here. This is the fourth in a series of 5 board meetings that Nate and I recorded back in 2018, all based on a phrase we learned from Trevor Ragan of Learner Lab. Common sense isn't always common practice. We came up with 5 areas of climbing where we see that phrase holding true, and we sat down to discuss them. And while I was working on my new book, Adapt, Lessons Learned Climbing 100 513s, pretty much all of these themes came up. And in fact, what we're discussing today, starting where you are as opposed to where you want to be, came up several times in the book as I came back to climbing after a break, switched from sport to bouldering and back, and more. And I'd say that it's exponentially more difficult to get right the better a climber you become, which seems counterintuitive until you realize the weight of your own expectations. All right, let's get into it. Before we even start here, I just want to note that I'm staring at my notes from a couple episodes, and Adam Ondra did 442 514s between the time that he did his first 15A and silence.
And he did 106 before his first 15A.
Yeah.
Is what I believe
Yeah.
we had said.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot of rock climbing.
It is.
There's a lot of people
hard
who
rock climbing.
won't do 500 pitches of anything.
Yeah.
Much less 514.
Okay. Let's move on now. We are in part 4 of the common sense versus common practice. And even though 442 514s was Adam Ondra's common practice, it does not make common sense.
No, it makes no sense.
And in this episode, we're going to talk about training where you are versus where you want to be. And shit, that sounds so simple and like common sense.
That's obvious
when I say it. But so many of us, I've literally got one 4-part note for this whole episode. And my note says, you are not is in capital, all caps. You are not Sean McCall or Adam Ondra or Patchy Usobiaga or Alex Puccio. You're none of those people. I mean, you might be actually, but unless you're one of those 4 people, you're none of those people. And you shouldn't necessarily be training like those people. It doesn't matter if you want to go climb silence, like Nate so adamantly mentioned in the last episode. You probably don't need to train your calves to climb your Madness Cave project. It just doesn't work that way. You don't need to be paying attention so closely to what the pros are doing because they're where you want to be.
So I shouldn't go on a ketogenic diet, even though Dave McLeod did it to climb V15?
You shouldn't. I mean, you know what? If you want to go on a ketogenic diet, I'm not going to stop you.
I mean, bacon and butter sounds great.
The same as if you want to be Catholic, I'm not going to stop you.
Well, what about, what if I want to do a certain pros hangboard workout that he used to go from V14 to climbing more V14s?
I mean, if you want to do Kris Webb Parsons' hangboard workout, you can do it if you want to. But you shouldn't expect that doing that same workout is going to get you to where that pro is. That's not how they got there. In 99% of cases, you don't see what got those people there. We're already ranting. We're 3 minutes into this episode and I'm already ranting. So
you started out with all caps.
I know, I did. You're right.
Angry voice.
That was a mistake. Let's back up here. Train where you are versus where you want to be. Let's dig into that a little bit. Why is that difficult for people?
Because, man, I want to be better.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be where I am right now. I want to be where all those people are, like doing hard shit and like cool looking rock climbs. Clearly, they're doing something correctly because they are there and I am not.
Yeah.
So I should follow them.
Yep. I think, again, we mentioned this already, but this whole series stems from the public service announcement, Don't Believe the Hype, that I recorded. And really a lot of the problem comes from the fact that the media portrays things this way. And now we can portray it ourselves this way through social media. But initially it was the magazines, train how such and such trains, or videos showing you this person training for whatever specific route it is they're going to go do. That's a really great way to teach people bad ways to prepare themselves.
Yeah.
But it's what we have. It's what we were given. It's what we believe when you're coming up as a 5'10" climber or whatever. I definitely watched a lot of the videos. I was obsessed with the magazines, and I read every damn training article that came out in those magazines, whether it made sense or not. And oftentimes it's companies or magazines or whatever asking these athletes to write them a training article. It's not that the athlete wants to say, hey, everybody, here's what you should be doing because it's what I do. It's that the companies that are going to pay them money, the sponsors that are giving them money are saying, we need you to write this for us. And I think that's a mistake. And again, props to La Sportiva for having you come out and give some common sense approaches to training, that hopefully will become common practice. You see how I did that there?
Oh, that was good.
So it's a big problem in this media driven world that we live in now, especially. Are there other problems other than the media? Because I'm totally harping on the media right now, and it's not all bad.
Fads in general, so many of these things. I guess that gets propagated by media. Our own expectations.
Yeah.
Because this doesn't
That's
even
an age-old, forever problem.
Yeah, this doesn't even simply have to be, I want to train like the pros, though that is kind of where this stems from. I think, we can all agree, trying to train like a pro, we know that's dumb. That's not what we should be doing.
Right.
That is the wrong way to go about things, but it does not stop us from doing it. How many people have you heard talk about the Kris Webb-Parsons Hangboard program?
So many.
Hundreds, thousands, tons and tons of people. There are people who can they struggle to hang with one arm on a jug, but they just want to take off enough weight that they can one arm hang on one pad edge.
Right.
It's if you're taking 50 pounds off, what are we doing here? What Kris Webb-Parsons certainly wasn't doing that. This was something specific to him at a specific time.
Right.
If you were in his exact same shoes, maybe it's probably tremendous. I'm sure it would be great.
And to be totally fair to Kris Webb-Parsons, we're not harping on him because he's giving bad advice. Again, it goes back to that PSA. You really have to pay attention and parse this information to see how it fits you.
Yes. I think it's great advice for the right person.
Right. Exactly. And he put something out there. At the time that went out, there really wasn't a lot of information that said, here's what you should do. And that's what people were looking for. People want someone to tell them what to do.
Totally.
So at that time, it sort of filled this need for people to be told, here's how I use this hangboard. So to be fair to Kris Webb-Parsons, is not just that he was giving bad information. It was that people were so fast to latch onto it, regardless of whether it fit them or not.
Totally. So to kind of go back when you asked, is this just media's fault? And I said expectations. Another time when you need to be training where you are and not where you want to be is if you're coming off an injury or coming off a break.
Yeah, I'm definitely deeply mired into all of that right now.
This is something that at some point we all have to deal with. Whether it's injury or just you took a month off or a few months off, whatever it is, you can't come back and train immediately as hard as you used to.
Yeah, this could very easily be train where you are versus train where you used to be.
Yeah.
in that case. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. And that's, for instance, we built this 45-degree wall at my house in the machine shop. My goal, my training plan, which I've been detailing for the patrons in the Patreon episodes, was to do some low intensity volume type days on that wall.
The intentions were so good.
The intentions were very good, but the intensity was way too high. And I hadn't put the time in yet to really flush out a low intensity enough circuit for it to work. I just assumed I'll go in, I'll do the easy problems on the wall, do them all back to back, should be fine, no big deal. And that might have been true when I was at 13 plus, 14 minus level. Now that I'm coming off of this extended large break from climbing, that wasn't even close to true. So those low intensity sessions became far too high intensity very quickly and probably helped along my finger injury. I don't think they're the only cause of it, and actually, those low intensity sessions aren't the only cause of it, but the major cause of it was trying to train where I used to be and not where I am at the moment. So I've had to take a step back because I was forced into it. And a lot of people who are trying to train where they used to be are also going to be forced into it. That's not a good thing. I don't recommend it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And this doesn't even have to be that you got injured or took time off. It could just be that, you took a year to go sport climbing and now you're going back to bouldering. Like, you're going to have to slowly go back through. Man, and going bouldering to sport climbing, one of the worst things you can do is try and go back to the exact same type of volume you were doing initially. Yeah. Like, if you want to blow up your elbows and shoulders and wrists, like, that's a guaranteed way to do it.
Yep.
Like, it's really easy to think that intensity, like, crimping down really hard and trying really hard is what injures us. But ramping up the volume really fast, that's just as easy a way to do it.
Yeah, totally. Are there specific things that you see happening repeatedly that are examples of people trying to train where they want to be instead of where they are?
Calf raises.
I think one of them that I see really often is campusing.
God damn it. That was mine. Continue. That was a great point, Kris.
I see it all the time. People thinking they need campusing because so many times you hear, oh, you need power?
Go campus board.
Go campus. That's not the only way to gain power. In fact, I would call it a fairly high level expression of power, more so than a way to gain power.
I'll even go a step further.
Okay.
I will say that most people aren't physically capable of being powerful on a campus board.
Totally. I agree completely.
Like, if you watch someone campusing, they don't move anywhere as fast as they are capable of moving while climbing. Like, they move really slow, actually. Most people, when they campus, even when they do 147, 159, it's a very slow movement.
Yeah.
That's honestly, it's more strength than it is power. Like, and I totally get it, guys. Campusing equals power and like weighted pull-ups equals strength. Like, that's what we've been hammering in forever.
Yeah.
But really, like, most people are not strong enough to train power on a campus board.
Early on, when I was starting to look at climbing training as a potential business, I was writing a training plan for someone, for a company to sell. And it had campusing in the program. And it was a program specifically for higher level boulders.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told that I needed to make it work for beginners as well. And I was like, can't happen.
Campus, yeah.
It's not, this isn't the place for them.
Yeah, this modality is not useful for beginners.
Yeah, they're going to get way more out of climbing powerfully, trying to learn to use momentum, than they are being on the campus board. Nope, this has to be completely scalable. I was like, well, then I can't do it. Sorry. I'm out. And I stand by that. I see a lot of people who, if you can't do 135, then you shouldn't be trying bumps and touches and all these other more powerful, harder on your fingers, harder on your elbows, harder on your shoulders exercises.
Mm-hmm. And 135 in control.
Right.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
So I think that's a really, really common example of people training where they want to be. I want to be able to do this stuff, so I'm going to try it. And that makes sense. I mean, I want to be able to do this. Let's try it.
Yeah. And you got to take the training wheels off at some point.
Yeah.
Like, and the thing is, if you do want to try something, go for it. Just be smart about it. Like, honestly, campus boarding, I think, is one of the easiest things to overdo, because a good campus board session, it's almost boring. You're like, oh, I'm sitting.
Lots and lots of sitting there.
It's so much rest. Like, if you're doing it alone, like if you have a group of like 4 or 5 people, then it's cool. Then it like, there's only a little bit of pause between every single person. If you do a campus board workout by yourself, like, man, bring a book. Like, it's slow. It takes forever. And it's so easy to be like, oh, I feel fine because I only did 2 moves. And so I guess I'm rested. I'll just keep going. And it's really easy to get hurt, to overdo it, and just not get the benefits out of it.
Yeah. And you've said something in the past that I think really, really works here as well, that you almost always know when you're about to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's almost always something that says, maybe I shouldn't do this. And then you do it anyway, and then you get injured. Right. I mean, before I hurt my finger, before it went really bad, I thought, probably shouldn't be trying this hard right now. And then I tried hard anyway. And lo and behold, I got injured. And that, so many of those people on the campus board, or, getting underneath heavy weights, or whatever it is, hanging with heavy weight off their harness, whatever the situation is, so many people, there's something in their head that says, this is dangerous, maybe I shouldn't do this, and they don't listen to it, and they get hurt. And I think that's often a voice telling you, you're not here yet. This isn't where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
So I think listening to that voice is important.
Totally. And I think a lot of this comes down to having a long-term outlook for where you're trying to be. Like, and it's hard to do. Man, it's so difficult to say, like, this is where I'm at. This is what I need to be doing. And that's where I want to be, but it's going to take me, years to get there.
Yeah.
But it's a serious endeavor, and I want it, so it's worth the time. That delayed gratification is such a difficult thing to try and achieve.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, this can even stem back to what we talked about with building a pyramid. It's so easy to try and pull the trigger on a hard project too early. To be like, well, I did the moves, so I'm just going to start trying it. And in that time, you could have, a great example, like my last year of college, there was two V10s in the South I wanted to do, because to me, they represented, when I first started college, I looked at them and I was like, if that's V10, I'll never climb V10.
Which two?
The Womb and Biggie Shorty.
Okay. Cool.
And the summer before, I had gone out to Colorado and done like 6 new V10s, but they're in Colorado. So right. I had to come back and
Colorado.
Oh, here. They were here. Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, we're here.
We haven't left this house all day, or really. But so I had to go prove myself back in the South. And to me, these were the two that I remember when I first saw the Womb, I was like, that's not possible. Like, humans don't grab those holds. Like, just can't happen. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to put in the time in my last season here. And I want to do these two, because to me, they were like more than just V10. Like, they proved something. But they took me close to 15 sessions each, which is insane. And I look back at it now, knowing now the time it took me, I could have easily just gone and done, probably like 10, 15 V8s and 9s. And then with that kind of experience, I would have gone and done each of those in like 3-4 sessions. But at the time, my eyes were bigger than my hands.
I don't know how that applies to climbing.
I don't know either. My eyes were bigger than my hands. And so it took me a combined like 30 days to do those two. But yeah, and so it obviously hindsight's 2020, so it's easy for me to look back and be like, well, this is what I should have done, but I've fallen for that same mistake before, and I feel like I've had times where I didn't fall for that mistake and it paid off drastically.
Yep, totally. You know, I think we're often given this this cliche of, you know, walking the walk, or, you know, if you want to be it, you have to embody it, or, you know, whichever cliche you choose that says
dream big.
But not even just dream big, but like if you want to be an athlete, you should walk like an athlete and talk like an athlete and, you know, embody the athlete. And if you want to be a V11 climber, you should walk and talk and act and go climb on V11s, you know. And we often say you can't send V10 if you never try V10, you know. So there's a lot of conflicting advice there. You know, it could be taken a bunch of different ways. I think the thing that's important to understand, or maybe one of the things that's important to understand, is by walking and talking and acting and embodying these high-level athletes, that means you're being very aware of where you are right now and training appropriately, acting appropriately, getting on the appropriate level rock climbs.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like this is not in any way to just trash on high level climbers or anything like that, or what they
not
do.
At all.
Like if anything, it's the opposite. Like they walked the walk and that's what got them there. Like they, every step of the way, like they said, okay, like what do I need to improve right now? Like, because if they tried to overreach and say, oh, what is Kris Sharma doing? Then it's like they would get injured or they just wouldn't benefit. And so there are a lot of great things that pro climbers do. And we can take them and look at the principles and say, this is great. Like I should embody that principle.
Yeah. And they're professional climbers. They're not coaches. It's not their job to break down the things they did that got them to that place. It's their job to get to that place and continue pushing their limits.
Mm-hmm.
Asking them to tell you what you should be doing to get there is like asking a chef at some restaurant to go paint your car. You know, it's not the same thing at all. They are not qualified, nor do they necessarily want to be qualified to tell you, here's what you need to do to get to where I'm at.
Totally. And you're going to run into recency bias as well, which is
exactly
basically saying like whatever they've most recently done, like that's what they're going to say is what's working. So for them, it's like, they're like, pinky front levers. I've just started doing them. And man, my core tension and like my pinky strength is through the roof. Do that. It's like, yeah, for that, maybe that's a thing. For you, not so much.
Yeah. Pinky strength isn't going to do a goddamn thing for me.
No, definitely not.
No. So yeah, I think you have to be really aware of where you are and think more about the journey, think more about the path. And that sounds so cliche to say. And I don't, I'm not trying to be all super esoteric here, but getting to a destination is a journey no matter how you look at it. And you can't just skip over that part. You can't just land there at the top level. It doesn't work that way.
No, totally. And one thing I'd like to add as well, as far as there's some advice that I feel like has gone out for a long time, and I think it's almost a bit misleading. When people say, always climb with people better than you, I think that can easily be taken to an extreme of climbing with people who are so far better than you that yeah, they're just not walking the same walk that you are right now. Like they're not on the same path. Like it can be useful because you can look at it and be like, hey, like maybe that grade isn't so unrealistic. Like they climb 3 grades harder. So like, is this really a big deal? No, it can put things in perspective for you. But I've been recently reading Top Dog. You read it, which is on the science of competition. And more or less the summation of the book is be around people who are around your level or just barely better than you.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, and it's huge. Like having that close, it is a close competition that is super important.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if you try and overreach by climbing with someone who's like 10 grades better than you or 5 or whatever, like there is benefit. Yes, you can see the tactics they use and a lot of these different things.
Yeah, there are lessons to be learned.
Absolutely. But you need that close competition. You need someone who they're training the way that you should be training and they're at the level that you're at and they're pushing at the same level you should be pushing.
Yeah. And we've sort of by default started talking about this on a level of like 513 or V8 or V9, looking at much higher levels. But this applies as well to if you're just starting out and you want to be that 5'11 climber you see in the gym, you shouldn't just go do what that 5'11 climber is doing. You should spend a lot of time climbing where you're at. Climbing on all the 5'8s, all the 5'9s, all the 5'10s, try to be very aware of what's working, what's not working. Watch the people who are climbing the 5'10s and the 5'11s and then try to emulate what they're doing on those easier climbs that you're on, to make them better. So this applies across all levels, not just Joe Kinder looking at Adam Aldra. That's not, I just want to make sure that that's not seen as the entire purpose here, the entire argument here.
Totally.
I mean, again, all these feel like common sense, but I feel like
that's kind of the point.
Yeah, I feel like this one, I'm just going to keep hammering home the same point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's one of those things that, and with all of these, like if you take a step back and look at it, it's easy to know if you're guilty of it. And so what we're really saying is take a step back and look.
Yep. Yeah, it comes down to principles. And that's what the next episode is going to be about. We're going to try to wrap this thing up into a nice little bow. Principles versus prescriptions. That's what we'll be discussing a week from now in the 5th and final episode in this series. Until then, if you're interested in checking out the new book, you can find it at powercompanyclimbing.com/adapt, or the link is right there in your show notes. You'll also find links to both Nate and I on YouTube and a link to our newsletter, The Current, where every month we try to connect the dots between all of the concepts we're currently working with and help you learn, grow, and excel.
It's time